to the front bench contribution. Shadow Minister David Reid.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it's an honour to wind up the final debate on the King's speech for His Majesty's loyal opposition. We've heard many sterling contributions from members across this House, and I will turn to some of those shortly. But I want to first pose once more the central question of this debate and ask every member to answer it honestly. Is our national defence truly ready? Madam Deputy Speaker, my honest assessment is no. No, it is not. War is no longer a matter of history. The international order, which we have all lived under, is fracturing. War has broken out across multiple continents, and rapid technological advancement and the accelerating consequences of climate change are compounding an already dangerous volatility. The world is not as it was, and we cannot afford to govern as though it is. Now, while it's encouraging that so many members are engaging with this epoch-defining issue, it's equally clear that there is a corrosive complacency at the heart of this government. And those are not my words, Madam Deputy Speaker. They belong to Lord Robertson, a former Labour Defence Secretary and former NATO Secretary-General, and one of the most distinguished voices in this country's defence establishments. He did not use them lightly, and he directed them squarely at this Prime Minister and this Chancellor. When a man of that stature speaks in those terms about his own party's governments, this House would do well to listen. More than that, Madam Deputy Speaker, there should be no politics in acknowledging the reality that stares us plainly in the face. Where the politics begins, legitimately, is in the harder questions. Where the money comes from, and how and what we choose to spend it on. Turning to the contributions that we've had, opening the batting was the chair of the Defence Select Committee, and I think we can all agree that he made quite a brave and powerful speech and laid bare the holes in the government's approach to defence in a constructive way. And I've seen him do that repeatedly as his work as chair. And it was good to see him wearing his RCDS tie as well. My right honourable friend, the member for Chingford and Woodford Green, as to be expected, made an excellent speech and touched on the supply chain issues that we're seeing and reliance on China, points that I'll come back to later in my remarks. The right honourable member for Ilford North, he is no longer here, but it was quite intimidating looking before and seeing the Streetonian Praetorian Guard in full force. He articulated the weighty issues we face as a country, and I seriously do hope that defence issues are front and centre of his coup d'etat attempts. My right honourable friend, the member for South West Wiltshire, illustrated lessons from World War II and what we need to learn and act on without delay, points that were reinforced by my right honourable friend for New Forest. The honourable member for Newcastle upon Tyne, I think, again, we can all agree that she's doing a fantastic job as trade envoy to Italy, called out some of the supply chains that she's seeing in her work at the moment with Italy around GCAP, and pointed out the government's dither regarding the slow release of the Defence Investment Plan. We've also had other strong contributions from the honourable member for Liverpool West Derby, for Tunbridge Wells, for Southend East and Rochford, my right honourable friend for Wetherby and Easingwood, for the Wrekin and for Gosport, the honourable member for Hemel Hempstead, for Wolverhampton West, for Cheltenham, for Leeds South West and Morley, Dunfermline and Dollar, and my honourable friends for South Shropshire and South West Devon. Many more contributions, too many to mention, Madam Deputy Speaker, but it was great to see so many of my constituency neighbours from the South West. And as the Minister opposite has championed repeatedly, it is a region that will play a decisive role in our defence readiness going forward. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, like many in this House, I am utterly tired, if not bored, of asking when the Defence Investment Plan will be published. And I'm not even going to bother asking about the planned Defence Readiness Bill. The government set their own deadline last autumn, and 10 months on, it's still nowhere to be seen. Now, for the large prime contractors, those too big to fail, the calculation is simple. They leverage their workforce and industrial base to force the government's hand. But for smaller companies in the supply chain, the picture is far bleaker. With a meagre number of contracts being awarded, they are being starved of work. And if they haven't already gone out of business, many are reaching the same conclusion. If you want to grow, you have to go. And go they will, Madam Deputy Speaker. The United States and European defence markets are rising to the moment, and companies and finance will follow the business. The government's indecision and delay is placing British defence at the back of the queue at precisely the moment when the queue has never mattered more. This leads me to challenge a phrase used too freely by defence ministers: sovereign capability. For many of the areas that we most want to excel, true sovereignty is a myth. Take artificial intelligence. The best AI needs the best chips. We do not own the means to production. Our options are either our American allies or China. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I know which one I choose. Take drones. The government talks a good game, but most small aerial drone systems depend on neodymium magnets, and China controls over 90% of global supply. That's not a supply chain problem, it's a strategic vulnerability. What's truly in our national interest is to identify these dependencies, a point reinforced by the chair of the Defence Select Committee, and I know this is work that his committee is looking at, and swiftly partner with allies who can help address them. I do not see that joined-up work happening across government. That leads me to the structure of our public defence establishments. We have roughly 55,000 Ministry of Defence civil servants, and yet we recently struggled to deploy a single, partially functional destroyer to protect our sovereign base area in Cyprus, a point that was expanded on by the member for Tunbridge Wells. Now, there are many fantastic civil servants in the Ministry of Defence, and I've had the privilege personally to work alongside a number of them, but I cannot believe that I'm alone in seeing the imbalance in that equation. Lastly, Madam Deputy Speaker, I turn to our service personnel and veterans. At every UK training establishment, the law of armed conflict is rigorously instilled into every recruit and officer cadet, and that legal framework underpins a service person's conduct throughout their career and on operations. And I speak with a lived experience as a former Royal Marine. Where someone transgresses from those rules, they are investigated, and if found guilty, the full weight of the law is brought to bear, and rightly so. However, the government must confront an uncomfortable truth. By dragging veterans through the courts decades after the event, as will likely occur under the government's Northern Ireland Troubles legislation, the process becomes the punishment. Indefinite legal jeopardy with no discernible end causes profound and lasting mental anguish. And when we apply that same logic to serving personnel operating in unimaginably violent environments, hesitation in the heat of battle, born of legal fear rather than military judgments, can cost lives. For most of us in this House, it's impossible to truly comprehend what that means, but we must try. And we owe it to the people that place themselves in harm's way on our behalf to give them the assurance that this House has their back. Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, I want to extend the hand of cooperation to the governments, an olive branch offered by the Leader of the Opposition and carelessly dismissed by the Prime Minister. In this new era of geopolitical instability, we on this side of the House want to support the government in delivering the defence readiness this country deserves. Now, my honourable friend, the Shadow Secretary of State for Defence, has set out Conservative proposals clearly, and we will continue to work on that, and I hope the government will receive them in the spirit in which they are intended. Madam Deputy Speaker, our country needs politicians who can rise to the moment. This is that moment. And with that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish the government Godspeed in this new session, for it's not their party's fortune that depends on it, but our nation's security.